Hey, this is Ash from Revolution Me, and I'm doing this video about why I no longer eat a raw food diet. So I came across a raw food diet about 6 months after becoming vegan. So I went vegan for ethical reasons, and the raw part of it was because I just wanted to be in great health. And when I first heard about the raw diet, I just thought it was insanity. But the more I looked into it, the more it made sense to me. But the problem was at the time, most of the raw diets were very high fat raw diets, so lots of nuts and seeds and avocados and coconut, and not a lot of fruit. And when I was eating that way, I didn't feel all that great. But then I came across a website called 30 Bananas a Day, and if you've heard of that website, then you know that Freely and Durian Rider promote a high carbohydrate, low fat diet. So I drastically increased the amount of fruit that I was eating, reduced the fat. I never was a big fan of nuts and seeds anyway, so that wasn't a problem. I learned to eat a lot more fruit than I was, and I learned to meet most of my caloric needs by eating fruit. So lots of mangoes and bananas, and it did take a couple of months for me to be able to eat enough fruit to meet my calorie needs, because I was pretty active, working out 4 or 5 times a week. I also had a full-time job, and just day to day I used to walk around and ride my bike around the neighborhood and stuff. So it did take a couple of months to be able to eat enough fruit. And during the first few months, I think I ate cooked food a handful of times, things like sweet potato and cooked vegetables, and I probably ate I think I ate some rice crackers on one instance as well. But and so that's why I can't really pinpoint the day that I started to eat a raw food diet. So I'm going to say that I was eating a raw food diet for about 3 to 4 years, somewhere along those lines. And I felt really good eating a high carbohydrate diet. Like, I noticed that my skin cleared up, my hair, was really thick and full, and my nails grew really quickly, and they were strong. And, I didn't, like, if I did get a bruise, it would heal very quickly. My athletic recovery was very good. So instead of working out 4 or 5 times a week, I could work out every day or sometimes twice a day, and I didn't have a problem with being sore. What else? My mood was quite stable. I felt happy a lot more, and people even used to comment that how come I'm so cheerful in the mornings when I don't drink coffee? And I still don't drink coffee, and so I think that from a physical and psychological point of view, there were huge benefits to eating a high carbohydrate diet. And in fact, I would still be eating a high carbohydrate raw diet to this day if it wasn't for one problem that came up. Actually, it was something that didn't come up, and that was my fertility. I did not have a period during the time that I was eating a raw food diet. So about 6 months into eating, so in 2010, which was about a year and a half after becoming vegan, and about a year after starting a raw diet, I went off the oral contraceptive pill. I'd been on that for a few years, and the reason I went off the pill was because I was nearing 30 and I knew I wanted to have kids someday, and I'd heard that it could take a few months for the body to get back to normal. It didn't take a couple of months. Didn't even take a year. A year ticked by, no period. 2 years, 3 years, nothing. I went to doctors, I had loads of tests done, blood tests, lots of blood taken, I had ultrasounds, I had x-rays, I had brain scans, and the doctors could not figure out what was going on. All the tests showed that my body just wasn't ovulating. Some people said to me that maybe I was so internally clean that my body was ovulating but didn't need to menstruate, which I kind of like the idea of being internally clean, but when I actually got the test done, no, that's not what was happening. It was that I was actually not ovulating, and it didn't make sense as to why that was happening, because all of my blood work was where it was supposed to be, and like my estrogen and all the hormone ratios, like luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone and all those sorts of things, they were all where they were supposed to be. There was no good reason for me not to be ovulating, but for some reason it just wasn't happening. And it wasn't a calorie issue either, because I was eating at least 2,500 calories a day, and usually more like 3,000, and sometimes even 3,500. And I'm not a big person. I'm only 5'1", and I have a small frame. So despite my activity levels, even with a small frame, I'm pretty sure that my calorie intake was adequate to be able to ovulate, but it just wasn't happening. And so, this was the time when I started to have some doubts about the raw diet, and I was going, how can this be that I'm eating what I thought was the healthiest diet on the planet? And I sort of bought into the thinking that cooked food was bad and that raw food was the way to go. And then I thought to myself, well, hang on, how could I be eating the healthiest diet and yet my body's not doing what it's supposed to be doing? It didn't make any sense to me. So the doctors diagnosed me with PCOS for some reason, which I still don't understand. And they said, if you want to have children, then you're going to need assistance. So they wrote me a prescription for Clomid, which is a drug that stimulates the ovaries. And they wrote me the prescription, and the Clomid counselor, came to speak to me and all this sort of stuff. And they said, if you want to get pregnant, this is how you need to do it. Now, at the time, I was 32, and so I wasn't in an immediate rush to start Clomid, and I wanted to try a few other avenues like traditional Chinese medicine. And so I said to the gynecologist and the endocrinologist, I said, look, if these alternative therapies don't work, then I'll come back. And they pretty much said the alternative therapies will not work, and we will see you again in a few months' time. Okay, fair enough. So I went to a clinic, which was a Chinese medicine clinic, and they specialized in fertility. And on my first visit there, the Chinese medicine person said that my body was out of balance because I was eating so many raw foods, and that I needed to eat cooked food in order to rebalance everything. And that was just such a huge shock to me, because I didn't understand how I could need to eat cooked food in order to rebalance my body. I thought raw was the way to go. And I did think about it, but I decided, look, obviously the raw thing wasn't working. I was doing the high carbohydrate raw diet pretty much by the book, eating just a couple of avocados a week. I didn't eat nuts and seeds because I didn't really like them, not eating any oil or salt, just eating loads of fruit, getting in 1 to 2 pounds, which is about half to a kilo of greens every day. I was eating lots and lots of greens in the form of lettuce and sprouts and spinach and things like that, blended up into smoothies. So from a dietary perspective, I didn't feel like there was really much more that I could do to improve. In fact, I couldn't see any other way to improve. And so I thought, well, all right, I'm going to try this, introducing some cooked foods into my diet. We'll just try it for a little while and see what happens. And from within 3 weeks, I got my period again. And to me, that just can't be coincidence. And it's not like I was eating loads of cooked foods either. I was still eating fruit during the day for morning and for breakfast and lunch. I was still eating fruit, and I was still eating lots and lots of fruit, lots of bananas and dates. And in the evening, I was eating things like rice and lentils and mushrooms and tempeh and a couple of things which the Chinese medicine persons had specifically said to eat. So I guess I was eating like a raw till 4 kind of diet. And yeah, within 3 weeks, I got, my period came back. And that to me, it just kind of blew everything out of the water that I had thought, that I knew about health and raw food and cooked food. And so this all happened in the middle of 2013, around June or July. So got my period back. I decided to keep eating raw till 4, just for the short term, just to see what happened. My cycle stayed regular for a couple of months, and then by October I actually found out that I was pregnant. Now, in those couple of months, I did make a few other changes, like career-wise, for example. So I'm not going to say that that me getting pregnant was entirely due to the diet, but definitely for me to to get my cycle back and to get my body working the way it was supposed to, the only thing that was different was that I started to eat some cooked foods. And I wasn't even eating that much more. I mean, I definitely find it easier to eat like 1,000 calories of rice than I do 1,000 calories of bananas, just in terms of stomach volume. But at the time, I didn't substantially change the amount of calories I was eating. It was still fruit for breakfast, fruit for lunch, and cooked carbohydrates for dinner. So yeah, it blew out everything that I thought I knew about health. And it got me questioning a raw diet. Now, then when I found out I was pregnant, obviously pregnancy hormones, they can be pretty powerful. And I found that for the first trimester, all I wanted to eat was fruit anyway. And I was eating lots of watermelon and orange juice. And then during the second and third trimester, when my appetite and my energy levels had picked up a bit more, I went back to eating like a raw till 4 sort of diet. And what was interesting was my blood work during my pregnancy actually stayed really healthy. My obstetrician thought that I would get gestational diabetes because of the amount of fruit I was eating, and I didn't. And in fact, everything like my iron and my vitamin D levels, they all stayed within the healthy range. They did drop, but that's very normal during pregnancy because the baby uses up some of the stored minerals and things, and some of the stored minerals and vitamins. I did have a prenatal vitamin which I forgot to take. I would say that the prenatal vitamin I probably would take one every 6 or 7 days because I just kept forgetting to take it. I'm not really used to taking supplements except for my B12, which I take once a week, and that was pretty much when I would remember to take a prenatal. So yeah, I was really rapt with how healthy I was during my pregnancy. I loved being pregnant, and I remained so healthy, no problems with blood sugar despite eating so much fruit. After my son was born, I found myself eating a lot of dates, spinach, and orange juice. And it's funny because I think dates and spinach have a lot of iron in them, and the vitamin C in orange juice helps you absorb iron. And I didn't eat those things for that reason. I was just wanting to eat them, which was really interesting. But I still ate a raw till 4 diet, and sometimes even it was more like a starch solution diet depending on how much fruit I had on hand. So will I go back to eating 100% raw diet someday? To be honest, I don't know. Maybe someday. I'm never going to say never. But at this point, considering the impact of just adding a little bit of cooked food into my diet, that's just made me question the whole raw food thing just a little bit. And I know that there are people who say that raw foods are the best way and that all cooked food is really bad for you and it creates toxins and mucus and stuff. I don't know. Like I'm just not totally convinced on that. And I can't discount what my experience was. To start eating cooked food and to have my body return to the level of health, or rather to have my body start to do what it was supposed to do within weeks. I mean, that I can't just ignore that. And so, maybe if I didn't want to have children and if I didn't care about having a period and all that sort of stuff, maybe I would have continued to eat a raw diet. But in terms of achieving the goals that I wanted to achieve, in terms of having children, it was not happening on 100% raw diet. My body wasn't working the way it was supposed to on 100% raw diet. I've racked my brains as to try and figure out why that would be, and I can't really come up with any answers. So I don't know, maybe you'll have some ideas. But to be honest, I'm not worrying about it too much, because right now, as long as I'm vegan, it doesn't really bother me. How I choose to eat is not so much based on whether something is raw or not, or cooked or not. It is based on how that food is going to make me feel. So I know that if I go to a raw restaurant and I eat something it's raw, but it's got lots of salt and garlic and onions and lots of oil in it, or nuts or something, I know that I'm not going to feel that great the next day. Whereas I can eat, 6 cups of cooked rice and feel good. So the criteria that I use to determine whether I eat something or not, it's no longer whether it's just raw or not. And now I've realized that to stick to this ideology of being raw at the expense of what really matters to me was not a healthy way to go about it. And definitely this whole experience has made me rethink the way that I feel about food, the way that I think, about many things, in fact. And I think it's a good thing, because the more we can open our mind and be open-minded about things, the better. And there was definitely a time in my life when I said that 100% raw, it has to be that way, and that's the way to eat, and anything else is unhealthy. But you grow and you learn and you have experiences, and that's what growth is. Having experiences, learning from them, making changes and then moving forward. I actually found, I have to say, in the months after I gave birth, I found that eating raw tilfor / starch solution, it was hovering between the two, I actually found that I dropped all my baby weight and then some. And now my weight, I know you can't really see me, I happen to be breastfeeding at the moment. I actually weigh less now than before I got pregnant, and that was totally coincidental. I didn't intend to lose weight. I didn't eat this way to lose weight. So if people ask me how I eat, if I had to define how I eat, I would just say I eat a high carbohydrate, low fat, vegan diet. And high carbohydrate, whether sometimes that means I eat loads of fruit, sometimes it's like me smashing in the dates. I do eat lots and lots of dates every single day. I also, but it could also mean smashing in the rice, and you know, there are times when I can easily eat 1,000 calories of rice, and I have done frequently eat 1,000 calories of rice just in one sitting. One of the reasons I did this video is because there are a lot of people who look to the raw diet as being the holy grail of health and weight loss, and I'm just here to say that first of all, for weight loss, you don't have to eat a raw diet. I would say a high carbohydrate, low fat diet is what helps weight loss the most, whether it's raw or not. And then I would also say that in terms of health, I'm not even convinced that 100% raw is necessary to have great health. And I feel like I'm proof of that. I mean, there's at least one example, and that's me, of a person who did introduce cooked foods without changing anything else and had a huge shift in health. So anyway, that's my story. And if you got questions, let me know, leave me a comment down below. And thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.